Oh, you stay there.
I have to stay here? That's no
Yes.
fun. That's no fun. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Is everybody
morning,
awake?
everyone.
Yes? We're awake?
How do you wake up? Do you drink
I've
coffee?
only had one coffee so far, and I usually have two by this time, so I'm half awake, just so everybody knows. So help me out a little bit. So.
It's okay. You don't want him to drink more coffee. He's
Oh.
very... There.
Now I get to dance. All right, very good. So we are so happy to be here today. I guess before we get started, we just want to say that we think that we are at a very, very interesting time in the industry. So almost 20 years ago, some people came together and created this thing called Agile. You've heard of that before? Has everyone heard of that? Yeah? Okay, that's good. And it's been an interesting couple of decades since that time.
Yeah, 19 years ago.
Yes, and so Agile has had its ups and downs, but there has been this undercurrent of technical agility. And a lot of things have happened since then where we've taken some of the original ideas that guys like Kent Beck, Ward Cunningham, Ron Jeffries, Martin Fowler, these brilliant guys came up with and have extended that and pushed the boundaries as they knew we would. And I think we've ended up where we are today. And like I said, I hope throughout our talk, you'll see a little bit about what we're talking about. We believe that we're going to see some major, major changes in technical agility in the next 1, 2, 3 years.
So until now, probably the competition has been more by size, right? Big companies were established well and they got the best talent probably. A small company would start something, let's acquire them. So it was always the big eats the small. However, recently with technology breaking and disrupting markets and people growing their technical skills and ways on how to reach customers, that paradigm has changed. It is more now the fast eats the slow. And that's why we're talking about the speed here, because no matter how big you are, it is about the speed right now. You need to be fast, and to follow up on what the doctor said, is about responsive, right? Responding fast, and sometimes even lead and be the one that the others want to catch up. So these are the things I'm going to bring on, and we're going to mix together the business part and the technology side on how we can combine and be successful. Okay?
Okay, so we're going to get you guys busy right away. So let's have everybody stand up. Everybody.
Even you at the end.
Even those of you who are sleeping, if someone's sleeping, just tap them on the shoulder and tell them to stand up, please.
No, there are some people still sitting.
Come on.
No, everybody.
So let me give a couple of real quick definitions here. So we're going to talk about delivery. And when we talk about delivery, we're talking about taking a code or application and giving it to end users all the way out to production. So when I say delivery, that's what I'm talking about. And also when we talk about delivering software in the context of what we're about to do right now, we're talking about from the time that you start to build something. Maybe you're building a new feature, an MVP, whatever it might be. So from the time you start that process until it is with the users in production.
In production.
Okay, so I guess I'll go first. So how many of you, if that process takes 3 months or more, so in other words, from the time you start building a new feature until it's deployed into production, if that takes 3 months or more, I want you to go ahead and sit down. Okay.
There's no shame. We're not judging.
No, it's not.
It's okay. How about 1 month?
So if it takes 1 month.
If it takes 1 month, sit down. All right.
Look how much.
We're clearing the room
okay.
here.
A sprint. One sprint. Let's say a sprint is what, 2 weeks?
Sprint, 2
one
weeks.
One or 2 weeks.
At the end of every sprint, you go all the way to production.
Okay.
There's no we need a test sprint. No. At the end of the sprint, we go to production.
What is a test sprint? I don't know what that is.
Some people do. Okay.
Okay. Then how many I deploy to production?
So we have only one left.
Every day.
Sue is the only one that goes every day to production.
Sue.
Congratulations.
Well, okay.
She's going to talk later about this.
Okay, well, so Sue, that's you. So I'd hope that there would be a few still standing, but that's okay. The folks said that they're deploying every...
Uh-oh. Yeah, so we're saying the folks that said that you deploy every day, like that don't deploy every day like Sue, we want you to meet Sue and ask her more, or meet us.
Yep.
We can talk more about this and tell more about stories on how we do this. Or you can.
Those who were standing up to say that they deploy every week or 2 weeks, those are the people you want to get to know here. If you sat down earlier, remember who those people are, because it's the people who are able to deploy very, very rapidly are the people who own the future. They're the people that are going to change the world. It's
He's
not
saying
the
something
people that
important
deploy
here.
every...
A lot of things. There goes the stakeholder, the shareholder, the business, the CEO, the CFO. There goes the competition outside of your company. There goes the market shares. There goes the market, everything that happens in the world. So there is a lot of things outside of the team that the product manager needs to be aware, needs to know, needs to consider, and needs to negotiate for. It is a world that continuously changing. We cannot pretend anymore that everything that we do, it goes in a big plan and just follow the plan and things will be fine. We have to either be ahead of the change or at least catch up fast with something that the competition did before us. So it's this responsive and leading. And product owners, our product managers, are the ones that we see as the point of leading all of this with the team. We end up in creating like this products that if we don't follow everything that we're saying, product owners end up with the teams building products that look like this, where 45% of the features are not used. You have probably heard the term technical debt. This is how product debt looks like. You have a product that you carry with you. You have code that you continuously build and maintain and carry it like a heavy bag with you and is never used. We don't want things like this, right? We want things that are used. And if we have to build something new, it has to be useful. It has to be add into the value of something that is already being used. So we bring design thinking as one of the concepts that is helping us to connect with the needs of the customer, right? What does the customer really need? If I'm going back, is that 7%? How do we find that 7% that is always used? How do we point out into the real needs? And design thinking has helped us with connecting with clients, understanding their real needs, empathizing, and then creating something that is really useful. So it's almost like co-creating. Now, if design thinking is done in all the steps one by one, that takes a little longer. We suggest to make that cycle there faster. So we can talk more about that, but think about it as a fast way of connecting with your clients and sympathizing in a human way.
But
there goes cheesy.
But there are problems with design thinking. Traditional design thinking is subject to this thing called biases. So we've known about this for more than a decade now. And in fact, in 2011, Jeff Patton, has anyone ever heard of Jeff Patton before?
If not, you should.
So Jeff Patton gave a talk at Agile 2011, which was kind of like the 10-year anniversary for Agile. And his whole talk was about how the data that we get from using user interviews and from this design thinking concept is very often tainted data. He gave a very specific example of where they were running some user tests in Manhattan, and they brought some folks in and they would talk to them and they would have a lot of questions trying to help. They were trying to design some consumer electronic products. One of the questions that was there of many was, what color do you think people would want this, this device to be in? And people answered, well, of course, they'll want the bright, vibrant lime green, or they'll want the fluorescent yellow, or the, the make you blind orange colors.
Well,
They're
it
very,
wasn't-
very wild colors.
It was in the 80s.
It was,
Those were the
that was the
colors.
time. That was the
Yes.
time. And what would happen is that as the people would leave, they were able to walk into this room where there were all of these bins of portable DVD colors, or portable DVD players in all of those colors. And they saw that the people who said lime green, they would pick a black one. And the people who said bright yellow would pick a gray one. In fact, pretty much everybody picked black, gray, or white. And this sort of a test they repeated again and again and again. And what they have learned is that often, if you talk to people about what they want, they often project what they believe others want instead of what they really want. And his hypothesis at that time, and that's been proven quite a bit, is the only way to get pure data is to run a test with people that don't know they're participating in a test. In other words, run a test where people are going out to complete an activity and watch and gather data. And that's the purest data that we can get.
Yeah, I have my neighbor. He was talking to me and he was saying how he wants to buy a sport car, a really nice 2 seats, goes fast, is bright in color. And then a week after, he went and he bought a minivan because he has 3 kids. And he said, those 3 kids don't fit in my sport car. Very different from what he asked, very different from what he bought. How would you know then? If you had only asked on a survey, you wouldn't know that, right? If you wanted to buy a gift for that neighbor, you wouldn't
I want a
make it.
sport bicycle. That's what.
Sport bicycle. So what happens here is that we go a lot with assumptions. So we assume that yesterday's weather is going to predict today's, and we say, well, let's do based on that. Let's go based on that. And based on that, we have these perceptions that if we build a roadmap and we do some really good estimations, we feel confident that we're going to do this really well. Sometimes these roadmaps are even long, and we expect that just follow the plan, follow the roadmap, very good estimation, and we're going to be, we'll be fine. However, the reality is different, right? The reality constantly changes. And in order to achieve and thrive and go ahead in this world that changes constantly, we need to embrace this change. And we need to embrace the fact that we need to explore and learn and continuously get in touch with our clients' need to understand what their real problems are that we're trying to solve. So there's this difference between lagging and leading here. With roadmaps and long plans, we are lagging. We are waiting to do something really big, and then at the end, we hope we're going to learn something. But with this continuous delivery, learning quickly and testing and embracing change, we are leading. We are in a place where we are constantly learning quick, testing quick, and being ahead of competition, ahead with the client's need. We don't have to sometimes wait for the client to tell us. We have already analysis and data that tell us what the client is looking for. Where do you want to be? Leading, I heard a leading one. How about the others? Leading? Okay, are we all for leading? Okay, let's lead. Here it is, our definition of continuous delivery.
So there's a geeked out, the top row, or top sentence, and then Ardita brings me back to reality. So when I'm talking about continuous delivery through the rest of this talk, I'm talking about every time anybody on the team commits code, it goes to production about 15, 20 minutes if you have a long pipeline later. So, and developers are committing 4, 5, 6 times a day. So a team of 6 developers might have, depending on if they're pairing or mobbing, anywhere from 10, maybe upwards of 50, 60 deployments a day to production.
And from business point of view, it is about running experiment in production, because that's where the clients are. I don't need to run an experiment in my QA environment. That's where I have my testers and my
What's a
product
QA
owner.
environment?
Oh, they existed before your time. You're too young
Oh,
for this.
okay. I'm too young for that. Okay.
Yes. So I need to run experiments in production. I need to run experiments with the client because this is how I build better products. Yes. Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. So the question was, can you apply this for medical devices? So if there's hardware, then there's a little bit of a challenge. Although people are finding ways to overcome the hardware challenge. If you look at what Tesla is able to do, which is deploy software into a hardware environment very rapidly. If you look at some of the work that's been done in the radar systems, especially where they're running Erlang as the core engine, where they're able to do hot deploy again of code. So maybe. When there's hardware involved, it does bring about other changes because software is soft. It changes very rapidly. Hardware doesn't change as rapidly. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me put you on hold, and we'll take some questions at the end. And if we don't have time, I'd also like to talk to you in more detail later. Fair enough? Thank you.
Yeah. So we want to go back into the fact that continuous delivery is driven by the business. I know we are so used to seeing continuous delivery as a technical specialty, and we only look at our technical.
You'll also be taking pictures of this, by the way. So.
We're only looking at our technical people, like developers and DevOps, and they sometimes keep product and business. Oh, stay away. We're dealing with technical things in here, and we want to change that. We want to flip that, because it is for business that we're doing the continuous delivery. Without a business need, no matter how fast you go, you might be going in the wrong way. No matter how fast you build, you might be building the wrong thing. So we need to do this together, and it needs to come from business.
Okay, thank you. So before I get back to the slides, I just want to say one thing, is that a lot of people are still under the impression that continuous delivery is for more of your startups or your rapid companies. But I tell you, you're going to see a lot of companies that still believe that are going to go out of businesses, because all of the companies that we're working for are banks, are investment companies, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals. So we're talking large companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees, and they're rushing to see how rapidly they can get there. So this is not something that's confined to just Google and Amazon and Netflix and a few other companies. This is where the competition is happening, and hopefully as we go through this, you'll see why. I'm going to geek out for just a little bit. This is an Agile tech conference, right? Tech, right? And you guys are all tech, right?
That's what
Everyone's
it says.
tech here? So let's get started. So we need to rethink the way that we decide, develop, and test. I think you have decide, don't you?
Yeah. You want to go ahead of me, but you can't.
Go ahead.
We said it starts with business.
Yes, it does.
So let's start with business. I need to make decisions. Well, how do we make decisions? It starts with companies setting a strategy and outcomes. We don't expect companies to say exactly what they want. I want a website, I want a mobile, I want you to build me this form. No, we want companies to come with an outcome. This is what we want to be known for. This is why clients come to us. This is what we do better than competition. These are the things that we want companies to set that standard for. And based on that, we have then product and business to decide the intent. What do we want to do in order to achieve these outcomes? And then, with that in mind, we have now these teams, these agile teams, that have cross-functional skills, that work together, that collaborate, and figure out better ways to do the how, that output. So we go from outcome to the output. And we start building little things here and there, a small thing here, a small thing there that builds, and it's incremental. And based on that, we learn. We learn from our clients. We learn what they need. We learn from their responses. Maybe we did the right thing. Maybe we do more of that. Oh, this didn't work well. Now we need to change it. So This is how we make our decisions, this is how we grow, and this is how we test. These small outputs are based on hypotheses. We don't have long roadmaps. That is not going to work for us if we want to test. We need hypotheses, we need experiments.
So clearly, in order for us as technical folks to be able to give our business partners the ability to do this, we have to fundamentally change the way we build our software. So, oh, this is still your slide, sorry.
You keep taking my slides.
I'm in trouble.
Yes. So to go back to hypothesis, we start with that hypothesis. We ask our delivery team, can we try something small? We deliver something small, and I mean deliver all the way to production. And based on that, we get some data, we get some information, we get some learning. We analyze those, and based on that, we decide the next hypothesis. And so the cycle continues. As you can see, we always decide what to do next based on data. There's no more gut feeling, no more guesses, no more assumptions. This is what clients are telling us. This is what customers are using. Let's work with that. The next slide is again mine. Because you told me that the best thing a customer, for a product owner to help to learn what a customer does and wants is feature toggles.
You heard of that
didn't know
before?
about this. I didn't know about this, but when I asked my technical team, what is the best thing for me as a product owner to learn, they told me feature toggles. So while I have ideas and hypotheses and experiments to run in my head, feature toggles is my lab. That's where I test them. That's where I run them. That's where I get the responses. So I feel like a scientist for once. I have a place to test my ideas.
Can I go now?
Now it's your turn. Because now I need you to help the rest here how to develop these experiments.
So in the industry, we have this really sad state. Most code that is produced is of very, very low quality. If developers here, how many are developers? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm going to tell you one is because developers are rarely rewarded for delivering something that's high quality. Developers have been rewarded for pushing something out the door, and there's always been this idea there's somebody else around to catch all of your bugs for you. And we'll kind of up on the back end. And it actually really doesn't happen. And that's how we end up with nasty, nasty code. That type of approach does not work at all in continuous delivery. So we've got to fundamentally, completely rethink everything about that. And if you've ever worked at a place where you deploy 100, 200, 300 times a day to production, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start kind of low level and work my way up, and I'm just going to mention some of the basic changes that have to happen. By no means is this exhaustive, but we're going to talk a little bit about these. So one I'm going to talk about is one that constantly gets debated, but every time teams and companies get closer to actually doing continuous delivery, they finally say, oh yeah, you're right. This is what we had to do. So first of all, source code management. You cannot have branches. That it is not physically possible to have branches and deploy to production all the time. You've got to get rid of them. No pull requests. Pull requests
Wait a
and
second.
People
People are laughing. Are you saying something funny?
That's okay. That's okay. They deploy every quarter. I don't expect them to understand. No, I've never seen a company who deploys rapidly who has branches because it just imposes too much risk. The risk of not being able to mercilessly constantly refactor, the risk of not integrating the code constantly. So we don't need branches to control release because everything goes all the time anyway. So we get rid of the branches, we get rid of the pull requests, we use Git how it was originally designed to be used. You know, Git was built around high trust, low trust. If you don't know what that is, talk to me later and I'll explain it to you. And we use feature toggles. So if I have a really large experiment, it's going to take me 3 days. Notice I said large experiment, 3 days to build it and get it out. An hour into day one, I'm pushing code to production already, and I use a feature toggle to gate that new behavior. And that feature toggle is also there for my product owner, my product manager, whenever they decide, yes, I want to turn this on, and they got complete control over that. Me as a developer, I don't even care or know about that. So let's talk just a little bit about testing. First of all, in this process, there is no such thing as a testing phase. There actually really is no such thing as a testing environment. We don't have these concepts and ideas at all. Because if you think about it, a testing phase assumes that you build something, and then when you're done, you're going to test it. But it's already in production. It's too late. So what we need to do is we need to fundamentally change our approach to that so that incrementally, each line of code, one line of code at a time, as we're building something, we're constantly, continuously testing it. And so I want to shoot down one of the biggest follies that we have in the testing community here real quickly. So there's this idea that we should be building lots of end-to-end tests.
Automation.
Yes, lots of end-to-end automation. Is anyone doing that? Yeah, you need to stop because it is a really, really, really bad idea. You see, these end-to-end tests, unless if you have the simplest type of application, if you have an application that's large and complex, these end-to-end tests, first of all, they're going to constantly fail. And the majority of the time that they fail has nothing to do with a defect in the system. It has to do with your environment, because the data's wrong, because the wrong version of the service is deployed, because the login system is down. We can't log in, and by the way, we need to log in order to be able to run these large scripts. And so realistically, all you're doing is testing an environment. Because if you pick that same script up and run it in a different environment, you're going to get a different results. So what we started realizing is that if we look at these end-to-end tests that go through maybe this much code, but if we get back to what is it actually testing, we often find it is testing something much smaller. And so part of the secret is to get to what it is we're trying to test and really focus in on that. So I've got a really complex slide here, but I want to tell you that this slide is from the largest Canadian bank. This is a very, if you don't know much about Canada, the banks are very, very conservative. Very conservative. And by the way, I'm working at one of the banks right now as a coach. This is the testing approach from them. So I'm not trying to show you something that's Amazon. This is something that's real. So I'm going to go through this one piece at a time. So you see we've got two broad categories, functional and non-functional. Okay? So on the functional side, unit tests. 95% or more of all of our automation is unit tests. And yes, we are doing TDD, which is the best way to achieve those unit tests because it improves your design. Now, a lot of people believe that you cannot test a majority of the app using unit tests, and I can tell you that that's not true. You absolutely can. There's actually very little that you can't test in unit tests. But for those things that we can't test, we have these things that we call component tests. And that might be where, let's say, for example, if I have an Angular app, I fire up that Angular app. It doesn't talk to any backend. It's isolated by itself, and I'll run a set of tests there. Or let's say if I have a service that is there for that Angular app, I'll boot up that service, I'll mock out what's behind it, and I'll make HTTP requests in the front end. So at this particular bank, we still have large back-end mainframe services that we have to call. And so we built what's called contract tests. These are automated tests that we wrote and then we gave to the mainframe team and said, run these every time you make a change and let us know if any of them ever break. And that's how...
By the way, he said mainframe. So if you're doing mainframe, don't think you cannot do Agile.
You can, yes.
You can.
So the last functional test is exploratory testing. And we do a lot of exploratory testing as we're building something. So we don't wait until something is done to do exploratory testing. You could do it step by step. I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit because I think we might be approaching our deadline. Visual inspection, again, a very, very important aspect. It's important not to build something and then go in and look at it. But as developers, we need to learn to become very, very detailed-oriented so that we can look at something and we can know and understand that it is right. How many defects are just visual defects? Quite a few. Accessibility, this is something that's really important in Canada. And so part of what we do is we've brought a tool that runs inside of our browser, and we've customized a rule set so that it actually tells us when we have something that violates the rules that we have set aside. And as a developer, and if I'm working on the UI, that's my checklist. I don't commit code until I go look at this and make sure that there are no open issues. By the way, that also runs in our pipeline. Security, the same thing. We have security experts that are going around working with the teams, constantly helping us ensure that we have high quality. We're dealing with a bank, lots of money. Capacity, performance, and load tests, these run in our pipeline, and they run very fast. Code quality is another thing I put under non-functional testing. You see, code that is high quality is code that's far less likely to have defects. And there are tools out there like SonarQube and other tools like that that can report how well our code is and can actually shut down pipelines if our code isn't of a certain quality. So teams, I'm encouraging our teams to set thresholds, and if it exceeds those thresholds, to shut down the pipeline. And some of our teams are doing very well with that. Production monitoring and anomaly detection is another aspect, and deployment compliance. I'm going to kind of move on from that.
Sure.
I'd love to talk about this more if you want to find me throughout the conference. Everything else is what we try to do to eliminate risk in the system, and some folks might call this DevOps. So let me start by saying DevOps is not a department, period. I see these posts, these job posts, senior DevOps engineer, and I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? Because you see, DevOps is a mindset. DevOps is how we work. DevOps is about giving developers the tools that they need to deliver high quality. If you have another department that's building the pipeline for a team, that's not DevOps. DevOps is giving the team the ability to build a pipeline end to end. DevOps is giving the team the ability to dynamically build their production environment on the fly and to manage that. Totally. That's what DevOps is. Now, I know a lot of companies are taking baby steps to get there, but that's where you need to get. If you have a department that manages all of that, the department, in order to be fully successful, needs to find a way to work themselves out of a job, and I hate to say that.
Well, not out of the job, but go with the teams.
That's right. The last thing that I'm going to mention here before we get to some closing slides is deployment pipeline. We've all heard about this, but what is it really? A deployment pipeline is something that the team uses to get code to their end users, to production. So what's included in there is completely up to the team. I mentioned some of the things that we're doing at the bank I'm working at right now, but it really is the team's decision because, you see, the team is accountable. The team is responsible for quality, so the team makes the decision around what do we need to have in our pipeline so that I have the confidence that 15 minutes after I commit code, it can go in front of my users.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is really about separating the concepts of release from deployment. Right now, they're all the same. I deploy something, and that means that it's released. But in the world of DevOps, those are two different, the world of continuous delivery, those are two different things. You see, deployment is a technical decision. Deployment is something that, on the technical side, we do constantly, continuously.
Mm-hmm. And release is a business decision. While I'm running with a lot of tests and small segments of clients and validating my hypothesis, then I see that things are working well, is responding well, then I'm ready to release to a bigger mass, more clients, bigger number. So it is a business decision, and I can wait until things are good, happy for me, my marketing is ready, and then I can release to production for everyone. So to wrap up, we need to drive with intent. There is no need to start and just do things because we are going to do, in a world where things can be done fast, we might be doing fast the wrong thing. So that's not the purpose. Fast is good, but let's drive with intent.
Delivering continuously, constantly pushing small incremental changes out, running multiple versions of the same code in production, multiple UIs, understanding which one outperforms the other, have the ability to run these experiments, learn from those experiments, take the data, and roll it right back into the next hypothesis is the way that we need to move forward.
Learn from our customers. If I am able to push so much changes quickly in production, I don't have to do an A/B test. I can do an A, B, C, D, E, F, G test. Because why not? I can run 1,000 tests a day, and those 1,000 tests a day can teach me 1,000 things about my customers. And like that, I can learn more. And it feels like you are co-creating with your client. It's not anymore like you just bring ideas and you have to think and imagine things. You are co-creating with your client. And this is about achieving a company's outcome, really, to be successful, to thrive, to compete, and to move ahead with speed.
Thank you.
Just one more. If you want more about this, we're going to run workshops on technical development and on product management, so you can join us tomorrow. No, Sunday and Monday. Thank you. Thank you, Monica, for introducing us.
Thank you. So I would like to welcome Rebecca Parsons to please hand over the trophy to Ardita and Jeff. A big round of applause.